Well, happy Sunday, friends. It's been a long time. Oh, it's so good to be back. It's been a month since our last Logic Live, and I want to thank everybody for their support. I had a little family emergency last weekend. Thank you so much for all the kind words and everything. But we are here. We are live. It is Sunday. It is cold. I'm sporting my my Logic.tv hoodie here. So now I look only. Now I'm proud. I now look half as good as John Agapetos does when he wears his, and that's a major achievement. All right. Oh, look, everybody's name is coming up in the chat. I really hope, by the way, this is a true test. You know when they say like it's like riding a bike? Well, we're going to find out, Randy, if I, if I still remember how to run a Logic Live. So great to see everybody. Matt McDonald, how are you, man? And Jeff, Mark Wellington, Valentine. Oh, it's been so great seeing all the chatter and conversation on Discord. I saw that Valentine in Ukraine and John in Melbourne hooked up. I think it was last night to me at like 3:45 and solved a problem. It was amazing. Randy, it's like thank you for the confidence booster, and you know it's like the old astronaut saying that like there's no problem so bad that you can't make it worse. And so here we are on Logic Live with that as as a mantra. This is going to be a great show. The car show with Renee Timm. Absolutely love Renee, and I can't wait to see what she has in store. And now we've reached that point in the music where it's turned introspective. This track is called Inspirational, as everybody knows. Randy, buddy, bubby, this is for you, man. I believe in myself because I have you as my friend. There it goes, right? All I have to remember to do now is unmute Renee. Hello, everybody. My name is Andy. Welcome to another exciting episode of Logic Live. Let's get underway. I actually have some new slides for you. I'm so excited. Let's see. But not this one. This is a classic. This episode of Logic Live, like all episodes of Logic Live, are sponsored by our friends at Synesys.io, solutions development, integration, and support, supporting flame artists since 1997. Thank you, Synesys. And thank you to AJA. Flame and AJA together since 2006. Thank you, Steve Losi. I love you like a brother. And speaking of new sponsors, if you're in need of tech support, call Jack, our friend Jack Horrocks. You can reach out to him at this email address, jack@flametech.com.au, for any help you might need in terms of flame, networking, storage, or custom builds of machines. Thank you so much, Jack. Welcome on board. We're happy to have you as a sponsor. And Jack, I'm sure most of you already know Jack. Jack's an amazing guy. He also, this is his second year offering up free tech support for the person who wins One Frame of White, who wins that brand new machine for One Frame of White. Jack will give you free tech support. Thank you so much, Jack. Happy to have you on board. Randy and I are also super thrilled to be able to announce we're working on a new partnership with Wacom. I learned that's how you pronounce it, by the way. And we're happy to offer all US-based Logic members a 10% discount off of all Intuos Pro tablets. You can get this discount if you go to their store at this web address, bit.ly/WacomLogic, and use the code LOGIC10 at checkout. Save yourself 10%. And that's on top of any other discounts they're running. I know Black Friday is right around the corner. And you know how I know that Black Friday is right around the corner? We're here to promote some Black Friday sales from our sponsors. Action VFX has announced a Black Friday 2021 deal, up to 55% off and double the subscription credits on all their annual plans. I have used some of their stuff. It's amazing VFX stock footage. Definitely give them or check them out if you haven't already seen all their offerings. And their sale starts November 25th. It ends December 3rd. Definitely take advantage of it. Our friends at Boris FX are also having a Black Friday sale. It's their biggest sale of the year. Save up to 50% off on all products. That's new permanent bundles and 25% off of everything else. Details available at borisfx.com. And that starts tomorrow. And speaking of exciting, I'm sure you've all heard, if you haven't already partaken, that we've got merch. Well, we also have hats. You asked, ladies and gentlemen, and we have delivered. Logic.tv winter hats are available. Renee is raising the roof. I can see that in a window right now. She's so excited. And we're getting on the Black Friday sale bandwagon and save 10% when you use the code LOGIC10 at checkout at the Logic merch store. I feel like it's a rite of passage, you know, that first you have a merch store and then you have a Black Friday deal. So I really feel like from like a retail perspective, Randy, we're there. I want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon. Again, look at the list. The list is growing. We could not do this without your support. And we're up to 95 patrons on Patreon right now. I want to thank each and every one of you. And just to also remind you all, after the show, we're doing an exclusive Q&A with Renee. This is something we do for our Patreon patrons. Renee's going to show off some shots and techniques that she can't show publicly. So that's only available to anyone who tunes into the show, the after show. If you'd like to get in on that, just go ahead to patreon.com/LogikTV and sign up. And right after Logic Live, if there aren't any new signups, I will send you the login link for Zoom. We do those on Zoom. So thank you to all of our patrons on Patreon. And the forum, by the way, is exploding. Traffic is up. We have 984 users. That's extremely close, by the way, to Randy's stated goal of getting 1,024 users. All right, so we want to get there as soon as we can. But thank you, everybody. We had so many new signups in the last couple of weeks. Page views have jumped up to 140,000 a month. We get about 60 new posts a day on the forum. Response time is less than an hour. In fact, usually it's a couple of minutes. I know it was for me recently when I had a Python question. And we're up to 210 users on Discord, which is amazing. We actually started a channel just for Python. Thank you, Randy. And if you're not on the Logic TV Discord, join the conversation. Just go to logic.tv or go to the forum and click on the Discord server and be a part of that. It's wonderful. We keep it running. I usually keep the app open all day, and it's great to see who pops up in the chat. It's also great when John or Richard over in Australia and New Zealand, respectively, wake up in the morning and they give us a good morning, and it's just wonderful. Also, I'm going to go back a slide because I'm not done talking about Discord. What's great too is we've had Amanda Elliott has been she's been working on a short film project, so she's just been screen sharing her flame, and while she works, and people have been chiming in. I think we had 10 or 11 artists on at one point last week. And there's John. Hey, good morning, brother. And it's just been a wonderful way to do what the Logic community has always been very proud of, and that is sharing knowledge, sharing information. So join the conversation over on Discord. Also want to give a shout out to our new Logic Academy classes. We have 3 new ones that dropped last month. There's a 2-parter on the image node by our friend Jeff Kyle. Part 1 is an overview of the image node workflow, and then in part 2, Jeff goes into some kind of more focused instruction. He gives you a beauty workflow, a color grading workflow, and then just some extra tips. Jeff is absolutely brilliant at pointing out the gotchas, things that are going to hit you while you're trying to work, and give you great workarounds for those. We also have 2 offerings from the man, the myth, the legend, Randy McEntee. The first is 8-Minute Aces, something that I had to review myself last week. Thank you, Randy. God bless you. And the second one is an intro to NDI with everybody working remotely, and that's not going away. NDI is a fantastic addition to the Flame workflow. You can share your screen, you share your video out anywhere on the internet, basically. And Randy shows you a couple of great use cases, like using an app on an iOS device, whether it's an iPad or an Apple TV, to make the most out of using NDI. So that's the image node, and then 8-Minute Aces and intro to NDI. Add that to Jeff's Connected Conform, and those are all available at logic.tv for free. I want to thank Autodesk for the sponsorship. And thank Randy and Jeff for the videos. Also, if you haven't checked it out already, this is the latest from the Flame Learning channel. Grant put out a video showing off the new support for 12G SDI, so definitely check that out. This is featuring the AJA T-Tap Pro, which we're giving away for Logic for a 1 frame of white. And speaking of 1 frame of white, today is the day, ladies and gentlemen. Submissions for this year's 1 frame of white are due today. I've already gotten a few of them already, which is great. I'm just looking forward to getting the rest later today. I want to thank everybody for participating. It's a big year this year. Our first place prize is a Dell Precision 7760 mobile workstation that is absolutely fully loaded. It's worth $12,000. And it comes with, as I said, free support from our friend Jack Horrocks. The second place is a 12-month subscription of Flame, courtesy of Autodesk. Third place is that T-Tap Pro from our friends at AJA. And fourth place is a permanent license of Mocha Pro OFX, and that's just a drop in the bucket of the prizes we have for 1 frame of white this year. You can check them all out at oneframeofwhite.com. And again, the deadline is today, and winners are going to be revealed on Logic Live in a couple of weeks on December the 12th. All right. Whew. I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted. My guest today is the lovely and talented Renee Timm. Hello, Renee. How are you?
Hello, how are you? Nice to see you.
I'm great. I'm just like I said earlier, I'm super excited to be back on Logic Live. I absolutely missed these. And I'm excited for the car show. You're going to cover interior cleanup and exterior cleanup, correct? And then we'll go off
Yes.
on the Patreon link, and we'll do some more stuff for our patrons. But why don't we just dive right in and get rolling? I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. If anybody does have any questions for Renee, just put them in the chat there on YouTube, and I'll make sure she sees them. And let's rock and roll. The car show. Here we
And
go.
we're off. All right. Hey, everybody. Well, I'm just going to go through some of the things that I know that I use most often. Um, and hopefully that will help you with any car projects that might come your way. Something that I do when I first start a job is I request from the client to get a high-res reference of the interior from publicity stills, and do that as soon as they lock you onto the job, because oftentimes I'll get it towards the very end. So you're going to want that to rebuild some of the things that notes they have to hit the interior.
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Keeping
Renee, but that's a great suggestion. No, because like I never thought about that for a car. I don't work a lot on car stuff, but we ask for that all the time when we're doing beauty work. Like we ask for a print ad so we know what like the goal is. Anytime we're doing anything with a product, we want to see what it looks like when it's beautifully lit and retouched, like what they're doing in their promotional materials. So absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, they have them. It's just hard to chase it down sometimes. And then keep in mind when you're fixing things that it doesn't have to be correct. It just needs to play. So I like to do broad strokes in my fixes and then play it down a lot, like do a lot of renders and just play and watch it down. The footage today I have is all from Lexus. The wonderful team at Team One is my crew who I work with a lot, and so they've provided me permission to use all this footage. So we're going to be doing Lexus today. So
It's a November to remember, I guess. Right?
exactly.
I went there.
So so the first thing I'm going to show you is one of the most common things, and that's to tint windows. And a lot of people say, okay, we want you to tint the window so you don't see the driver, but you can't just darken it, because you want to make sure that you have some kind of reflections, because that's what happens if you just darken it. If you took a color correction and just black it down, it looks bad. So the first thing you want to do is do a garbage mat for the window that's really nice, and then I do like a soft fall off mat for any kind of reflection or highlight on the window. And then I go through and do a play with the gain and the contrast, so that you do get something that takes down what you can see in the window, but it isn't just turning the gamma down. And then you want to color correct that so that it matches what the original was, and then regrain on top of that. And then you've got something that is keeping some of your highlights intact, but also you obscuring the driver, which is the goal. And I'll go
Right,
through a
you're right.
number of
The
these
goal is
because,
to obscure the driver, but it still has to
yeah,
look like glass. Like it still has to look
yeah,
like it's really there. Otherwise, it's just a void.
yeah, exactly. And so another thing that I have to do a lot is removing the reflection of camera crews or rigs in the bumper, or the, different areas of the car. So on this shot here, you can see there's a little bit of a rig of an arm in the front of the grill here on the lower right side. Is that okay? Can you see that okay?
Oh yeah.
So there's a few different ways you can accomplish this. And my favorite way is using pixel spread. You can also blur it, and you can try both ways and see which one works for your shot. But this one is I'm going to show you with pixel spread. I'm going to show you both ways on this so you can see which one works and which one doesn't. So the first thing I do is I stabilize it in an action node. And a lot of things that I do here, that's the first step of getting rid of stuff, is stabilizing it, doing whatever you're going to do, and then invert the stabilization. So in this case, I'm denoising it, and then I do a pixel spread through a garbage mat. And this particular case, it doesn't work well because it's going over some stuff here, and like the gas cap, or not the gas cap, there's like a little part of the car that you don't want to distort here. So in this case, this would not be a good way to do this because you can still see the rig, but it's not helping. So the better way to do this would be to blur it. So I've denoised it and after I stabilized it, and then I've done our favorite uh, what's it called?
Oh, the high pass, the frequency separation?
The blur, the Andes blur. I call it Andes blur.
The
It's where
bilateral blur?
you basically no, you take a section through a G mask and you isolate it, and then you blur it, and then you divide it out, and then you regrain it,
Ah,
and then when you can put that over top, it's
yeah.
gone. And I have a really nice little thin mat that's just a single line mat to get back that um, grill piece. I'm guessing that's where like a headlight or a fog light would go if they had that piece. But anyways, this works better for a technique for this in this particular case.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it plays down, and so that's what I ended up doing for this shot. It's called roll your own blur. If you guys look that up on the forum, Andy goes through a nice technique called roll your own blur.
Gotcha. I'm
And
surprised
so
he didn't call it like divide and conquer or something like that, you know? Ah,
yes,
there we go.
that's a good one.
Been a
Nice
month,
version
ladies
of
and
shot. Come
gentlemen.
on, that was a good one. Keep it
That's a
up.
great technique.
Yeah. So, and I'll go through that a number of times because that comes in handy a lot. It's a very, very used technique here. So this one is another one that I'm going to show you window tinting on. Um, we need to obscure the drivers here. And there's also a whole bunch of rigs in the lower left corner panel here. If you can
Ugh.
see this here. So, dun, dun, dun. Um, so I'll first go through the window tint. So step one, the color correction that I do is a combination of gain and contrast, and just basically getting it to the point where you don't see inside the car, and I'm color correcting it so you can see that it kind of brings it back into the world that you want it to be in. And they
Mhm.
wanted it darker as well. So then I'm just regraining, and then there's you can go as light as you want or as dark as you want on this, and you can get a lot of control um, in your gain and offset just by playing with these guys here, for how much you see in the car. But it's a much lighter and more nuanced way of darkening it down instead of just slamming the gain down.
Yeah. Nice.
And then this is the two different ways: pixel spread or blur. So again, I'm stabilizing it. So you have that quarter panel in
Mm-hmm.
focus, and then denoise it and pixel spread it. So in these cases, the pixel spread may or may not work. The pixel spread technique is really great for when you have like the side of the car driving by like the woods or a parking lot. And you can't really get rid of it, but if you obscure it in a way that's like a lens, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what it looks like because it maintains the reflection. As long as they don't recognize that it's a rig, that's all anybody's going for. So,
That's so
um,
important to
and
emphasize because again, it's not
mm-hmm,
that there shouldn't be something there. It's just there shouldn't be a camera
right,
rig there. Yeah,
right.
and that way
So in
you're
this
still
case,
preserving like the physics of how what a reflection does and
exactly,
how metal and car paint and everything react to light.
exactly. And so, in some cases, like in this case, this may be not a good idea. It works, but it's not the best solution, I would say. But when you're driving through, having a car that's going through a lot of environment, has a lot of things around it, as long as you
Mm-hmm.
don't recognize the rig, I think this is a good choice. And it's my go-to for most of the situations where I need to remove a rig because that is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the other way where you would, I'm showing this with a blur now with the roll
Actually,
your
Renee,
own
would you
blur
mind just
situation.
would you just zoom in or would you mind zooming in on your batch schematic there a little bit just so everybody can see the nodes?
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
So we've got our plate, and I've basically done a comp. So I've cut it out, and then I blur it, and then I divide it, and I'm regraining it. And so then you can pop it back over and there it's gone.
Oh my God. That is so great.
And it's nice because it does keep the it's a kind of I like this because it's a riff on my zap it, or what did I call it, the obliterator,
Yeah, the
because it's
obliterator.
keeping the yeah it's keeping the environment, because when you blur things, a lot of times the blurring doesn't work because you don't want to get rid of the highlights and the
Hmm.
specular and the nice little things, but in this case you do. That's fine. So, and then you can do a color correct if it's not quite right. So,
That's
and
great
are there any
technique.
weird noises you guys hear in the background? My dogs are like snorting and blurping and snuffing, and so they're adding a nice little, I don't know, texture to my background noise here.
It's a symphony of life.
Exactly. So here's another window reflection. This one's a lot more complicated, in that
Well, it's a more
it's the
expensive model
hero
Lexus,
shot.
so understandably, yes.
Exactly. Well, it's the in shot where it's like drifting in, and it's going to have the offer over the top of it. So it's a beautiful beauty shot.
Of course.
So you got to tint these windows, but there's all this stuff going on. And so you don't want to lose the magic that's happening in that plate. So the first thing that I've done is I've done a bunch of cleanup on the background so that it gets me here. And then it's basically the same type of thing where I've rotoed everything out. Um, I've got, this is just me showing you my roto path where it's all black, and I've got separate holdout windows for all of the bits here. And in this pass, I've done some things where I've offset and put the clouds in the windows, and then I'm sometimes using like math ops like min darken to put things from the plate back in. And then let me show you this. So, and I had a sunroof because this model had a sunroof. um, so, so now I've got like nuances in here from the sky. So basically I'm stealing from the plate. Like I'm stolen areas from up here and like put them back in the over top of my color correction for the window so that it has visual interest, and it's got like a little bit of a drift to it. So
Right.
but
Nature's already doing all
it's the
that stuff
goal.
for you in the sky. Don't
Exactly.
bother trying to
And
recreate.
thankfully the camera's not moving too much with the background. So it just kind of works for this plate. But that's another thing you can do instead of just tinting the windows.
Would you mind just going through the setup a little bit?
Sure. So this is my base cleanup plate here. Hello. So this is my mat,
Lovely.
and this is where all the magic's happening in this one setup. So I guess I could show you. Turn these things off here. Go through and turn off things. So I've punched it all out, and then I've gone in, and this is the bottom one. So there's my window mat, and then here's a soft mat, and I've basically offset from up here down into here
Oh
and
yeah,
scaled it
wow.
and repoed, and then I've done it with a screen. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
that's great.
So I've screened it with soft splits. So I've let the original tint of the dark stay down here, but then I've soft split in parts of the sky up here, and then
Hey,
just kind
Renee,
of
I'm
goes
sorry.
through
Would you
over
mind just
top.
zooming in on both sides a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
My schematic. Okay.
Yeah, schematic, and then on the result too. But it's funny, it's when we like you're dealing with a group of flame artists because the comments that I'm getting are we want to see the nodes, we want to see the nodes, right?
Yeah. Well, they're like saucers on my side, so I'm like, I don't know how much closer I can get on these without like to navigate around. But
No, all
yeah.
good. Thank you.
So it's yeah, totally.
That's much better.
Um yeah, so I'm just ghosting it. I'm stealing it from up here. Um if that helps.
Oh,
And
that's
wiggling it around, you
great.
can see it. I've flipped it, I've scaled it down. You can see the node parameters. I've scaled it down, I've rotated it 180, and then I've moved it down and left. So that's the same thing for this one for the windshield. Um, Now you see this the secret.
No, it's great. Again, it's I said it before, but it's true. Like the natural world is doing all the work for you. So don't bother. I mean,
Yeah.
I know like I've gone down the rabbit hole so many times of trying to recreate like a reflection, like a believable reflection or
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah. And
and it's
I played with
difficult.
a
Like
couple different
but it's all
things.
right there.
Yeah, don't forget to look at your plate. Like that's why I
Hmm.
say play it down a lot because sometimes while I was doing the cleanup, I'm like, what's a good way to do this? And then I just realized I've got all of this acreage up here to play with across the top of the plate. So, um, and it's clean. Like it just worked in this case. So yeah, let your plate do the work for you. There's a lot of that happening in some of my other setups where I'm just sort of like, and it happens a lot where your plate does offer you if you don't tunnel vision yourself into the shot.
Hmm.
That's why I'm saying play it down, stand back, do a different shot, come back to it because sometimes doing something else kind of rattles and resets you,
Yeah,
and then you
totally.
can kind of come at it from a different angle. You know.
Yep. And then you're not, yeah, you're
Um,
not stuck. You're not, at least you're moving forward on something else, and that helps clear,
mhm.
sometimes clear your thought. So like that subconscious part of your brain is still working on the problem, and it'll have a revelation when you're not obsessing over it.
Exactly. And
But
if you
would
do a
you
different technique for a different shot, you'll come at it with a different angle too.
totally? Would you mind going back? There were a couple of questions from the chat about the previous shot that I wanted to just see if I could have you take a look at. The first is from John. He was wondering if you wouldn't mind showing how you track those mats for the windows, or how you
Oh,
track
I
the
almost do
windows.
everything. How I track the windows? I do
Yeah.
everything in GMass Tracer. This is all my windows. So everything's in GMass Tracer, and it's
Yeah.
not. I mean, there's my setup. All the lines. I don't know if you can see those because they're black over. But um, this is everything set up, and then I have things that are different outputs. So I have stuff for different areas. Um, stuff for the car, stuff to hold out, stuff that's hard and soft, so I can add and subtract them as needed. But
Hmm.
I just do everything in the GMass Tracer.
Okay, cool. So it wasn't like a 3D track or a camera track or something like that. You just did shapes as needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's barely
Sweet.
moving. I mean, if you look at it, it's barely. I mean, this was
Yeah, that's
quick.
true.
This was not a big camera move. There's not a lot of scale on it. There's not a lot of rotation. It was a perfect shot for doing GMass tracers. And I had to
Hmm.
do a model year update for the headlights. So there was a lot of roto and stuff for that too. I had to change stuff inside these areas.
Hmm. Sweet. I know, like, whenever I've had to do the window tinting, I've also had the same challenge when I've had to like tint glasses. It's the edges. The edges are
Mm-hmm.
always super tricky,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it's bright inside and you're trying to make it darker.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any wisdom you can impart on that, or advice or anything in that
Oh
realm?
man, it's different per shot because I mean, if you look at it, you can see I don't have very many keyframes. Even
Yeah.
it just worked. I just stuck one down and hit go, and pass. Um, I'm
I've
looking
got
at
one more
my
question
names
for
of
you on
my
this
notes. That's
shot
funny.
before we move on, and that was from Antonis. Antonis was wondering why not use 3D shapes with Gmasks. Antonis, I assume you mean like use 3D shapes and then project on them, right?
Um, I suppose I'm just because I'm used to working like this. I do everything in the GMass tracer. Like it's
Hmm.
the first thing I start with. I mean, if I have any tracking, like when I stabilize a shot, I stabilize it in GMass tracer and then steal the action node out of that and stick it in an action. I mean, steal the axis node. It's just it's my first node that I pull into a batch setup. I guess it's just my way
Yeah.
of working.
You know what? I have a coworker, David, who does that. And when I first saw it, I was like, "What's this GMask trace doing?" And it made perfect
Yeah,
sense. It's like here's everything you
they're
need to do
always
your
hanging
tracking, and
out.
it's not cluttering, your action when you're doing all your
Yeah.
work. So I adopted that as well.
I was looking through my setup to see if I know that I've got some of them in here where a lot of my setups have like a mux in and then I'll have a hangout GMask tracer up here and you
Mm-hmm.
open it up and it's got all these crazy GMasks just hanging out because it's my scrap bin
Yeah,
area.
totally.
Um,
Yep, I do that. I know Jeff uses Mocha a lot. He'll do the same thing. Like there'll be a Mocha node just kind of hanging out up there, attached to the import
mhm.
mux. So,
Yeah, and
all
I think
right.
also I did this before those tools maybe were available because some of these shots are older,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't needed to do that yet. So more
Gotcha.
stuff to learn for me.
Hey, all right, moving on.
Moving on. So this is a more advanced one. I had to, in terms of stuff going on outside the car, this is not a rig removal. This is a sign removal. And that sign, speed sign, is having all kinds of fun
Oh my
hanging out
God.
here
It's like a zoom,
in the
a
middle.
dolly, a hill, a camera, and like a Russian arm. It's like 5 dimensions of movement there.
Yeah, it's all kinds of fun. So obviously the first thing you got to do is tint the windows. So I did that, no problem. But and the same thing, I do a color correction and I actually blurred them out because I didn't want to darken it down too much. So they just need these guys to be unrecognizable. So I tint, regrain, and then you can still see that there are people there, but they're not recognizable. And then this is where the fun is. So um, basically, I did a bunch of patches and soft split them back in. So um, there's a lot of freeze frames, like frozen frames from different parts of the picture for the different planes. Like I would freeze the extreme foreground here with some of these trees, and then I did a clean frame with some of the stuff in the far background, and then I did a lot of soft splitting and mats in here
Mm-hmm.
because, and then dissolving between multiple plates, maybe 2 or 3 different times, and to get those trees to soft split in, animating mats, and then so you get something like that, where you can see things fading on and off.
Yeah.
And then you start putting stuff back over top through, different keys, different hard mats, cheating some stuff where it's, maybe transparent in some areas. And if you look really closely, you can see trees dissolving between each other, but it plays. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you look along here, you can see like one tree is turning into a different tree as the perspective changes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the bottom line is it plays. So
Cool.
there you go.
Nice.
So easy. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to, I thought I saw, yes, Joanne had a question for you in the chat saying, could you please tell us what you mean by a soft split? She just isn't familiar with the
Oh
term.
yeah. So yep, it's I guess I'm maybe not using it quite right. There are 2 different plates that I've painted and I'm splitting between them. So like I have frame 27 here that's a still frame, and then I have another frame 13 that I've frozen. So these 2 plates are very different and I have to somehow kind of get them to go together. So I've made this mat for one of them. I've made another soft mat for another one of them, and I'm kind of dissolving between the different plates at different times. Like I'll use frame 27 for maybe that works on the cut from frame 1 to maybe frame 30 it works, and then after frame 30, frame 27 is not doing anything helpful for me, and then I'll like dissolve to a different frame, and I'll use that frame maybe a little bit
Mm-hmm.
before frame 27 and kind of dissolve to that frame until it works later. So that's the approach for it. We're just kind of dissolving between 2 different or 3 or 4 different plates because you can see in this that you're kind of seeing the front and the side of these trees.
Mm-hmm.
They reveal themselves. It's not really apparent when you're just looking at it, but when you start sitting on a still frame and then you try to track that still frame for more than like 15 frames, you very quickly see that it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So you just grab different frames and dissolve between them. That would be a better terminology than soft split.
Gotcha. Maury had a question for you. The question was,
Hi, Maury.
How would you bid a shot like this? Because actually, his first question was, how long did this shot take? But then he followed it up with maybe a better question would be, how do you bid a shot like this?
I guess this shot took me, ooh, I think it was a day and a half. It's been a while since I've done this one. And how would I bid it? Ooh, that's a great question. Um, I guess it depends on how many things I'm removing. When at first glance, this seems pretty straightforward because it's a window tint, and the window tint portion probably took me, half an hour, just depending on if there's little bumps and getting this just right because it is kind of front and center. It has to be perfect. But this business, I mean, with so much parallax and different planes, I mean, I would have been just 2 days out of the gates just because of if one technique didn't work, I would have had to like phone a friend and just see how other people would approach it. Plus, the trick is once you start getting rid of things, sometimes they find other things, and it depends on the client and the spot and what they're looking for. Like some clients are really big on cleaning up the road and they won't tell you that right away. So maybe they want to clean up the road later, or maybe they would want to change the sky or something about the car. And so things just start ballooning out. But if it really is just the sign, I mean, yeah, I think it took me maybe a day and a half to do this one.
Gotcha.
It was not easy. There was a lot of tracking. I mean, you can see.
Oh, sure. Like you said, when you really start to break that shot apart, you're dealing with multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
You're dealing with multiple focal lengths. Things are passing over one another. And Randy said in the chat here, trees are hard. I mean, they are. They almost change
Trees
every
are
frame.
very hard. Yeah, it really, and it's sometimes they're forgiving. Like I think in this case, I was lucky they were forgiving because they were behind the car, they were a little farther away. But the stuff when it comes up closer to camera, you really start to see like 180 degrees, and that's when those are really really hard. Stuff that's farther away, there's less parallax to deal with, but when it's closer to camera, those are harder. And when
One
the car
more.
goes in front
Oh,
of it, you
sorry.
have to consider that too for the
Yeah.
roto of the car and all of that.
One more follow up from Mari on this. These are great questions. How do you explain to the client that this, like getting rid of that sign, seems like such a small thing, but it's so involved to execute?
Well, that I think is a matter of trust with the client. Um, if you've never worked with this client before, um, I mean, that's hard. I work with these guys a lot and they know that these are hard shots, but if you've work with someone that's never gotten rid of a sign for a car job, I mean, just start using big words like parallax at them. I don't know. Um, I would be curious to see how anybody else explains that because I mean, signs are never easy. I
Yeah.
have done a lot of sign removals on racetracks and in environments, and getting rid of rigs and cars, I think, is easier than getting rid of signs in the environment. And sometimes, if you can ask them, like, another thing you could do is offer a different alternative. You can say, like, okay, yeah, they want to get rid of that sign, day and a half. If the client comes back and says, oh my God, a day and a half, what do you mean? You could say, well, if you want to blur it,
Mm-hmm.
I could do that in a couple of hours. So it just
That.
depends on if you want to blur it or if you want to get rid of it. And then that gives them something to chew on in terms of a scope of work.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
you
Oh,
don't have to tell
totally.
them why it's so hard, but you just maybe give them different price points, different options of how to solve the problem. Because I think the bottom line is they're just trying to get rid of that big ugly thing in the frame.
Yeah. The
So
distraction, because they just want to see the car. Yeah. And I know. I mean,
exactly.
it's like kind of part of the art of being a flame artist is you have to be able to communicate to the client in terms that they can understand, and not in a way that sounds like you're talking down to them or anything like that. But it's kind of that process of bringing them on board, so that
Yeah.
they feel like you're a partner in this process of bringing this commercial or whatever whatever it is to life. Yeah, even
Well, I
like
think they also don't always need to understand how it works. I think they
yep,
just want to know why, like, they just want different options because they
yeah,
don't like
totally.
trying to explain to them how hard it is. It's almost can come across as whining. But if
Hmm.
you say, you know what, I see this list you have is a big list. Let's talk about what's the most important. And
Right,
then let's talk about the different ways we can fix it for you and stay in your budget. And I think that's a
totally.
more important conversation than why this is so hard.
Yeah, I think you're right. And being able to offer them options is like is the key. Whether I mean,
Mhm.
putting up a list of priorities is also key, but being able to offer them options. What you're really trying to do is solve the problem. What's the problem? I find the
Mhm.
sign distracting.
Mhm.
Okay, maybe we can make
Yeah.
it less distracting and not have to worry about getting rid of it. And in the chat here, there have been a whole list of great suggestions. You could darken the sign, you could blur the sign, you could
Darken
cover
it.
it with with
Exactly.
a tree or
Color
something.
it.
You could
Exactly.
sell the sign as a branding opportunity. Throw a Lexus logo on there. You know what I mean? And just call it a day.
Yeah. 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 Those are great ideas. I mean, that's exactly what you have to do
Yeah.
is just show them all the different ways they can get rid of the sign. And yeah, that's the whole bottom line.
John in the
Good
chat had a
stuff.
question for you about cleaning up the road on this shot, but I think if I remember, do you have road cleanup in another shot that you can show, or should I ask the
I
question about
will
this one?
later. I will later, but we didn't clean up the road in this shop.
Okay, cool. Hang on, John.
Um, Hang on, John. Got a lot of stuff. We got to get through the interior too. You'll definitely get some road cleanup in this though. I want to show some easy stuff. We'll go to a super easy one. So
Cool.
the request on this one was we need to get rid of the lane assist light. You see this here on the side view mirror
Hmm.
that just popped on. That's a kind of thing that you might need to get rid of. So my go-to on this is stabilize it and sequential paint. Done.
That's the answer to so many of
So
life's problems.
that's the answer. So much. Yeah, I
Yep.
didn't want to scare you all. They're not all hard. This one's add a blinker. So I had the plate that was um, for the legal team. It has to be. He's changing lanes. He's got to be blinking. Got to have a signal on for that. So I got a blinker from this car. That's all we had to work with. And so um, stabilize and then track it onto that side. So now you have a blinker. There's ones that are clean up the road crew. So all these guys back here on the right, this is on a commercial that's running now.
Hmm.
So they had camped out on the right side. There's trucks and stuff. And this is a one node wonder here. You clone a little bit of from the left and you clone a little bit from the right.
That's so
And then
great.
you're done. And it grabs
Oh
the
my God.
smoke, it gets the light change, it has the mist. Everything's in there. You can't see anything.
Can you just
No
dive
have
into
to worry
that
about
action?
degraining. You want to dive into
Yes.
that?
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh my God.
Isn't that simple and elegant?
Yep.
It's a single track and then it's a G mask with an offset here,
Hmm.
parented, and then a G mask in this little section, super, super soft, and an offset there. You don't have to worry about regraining anything. It grabs the lighting, super clean.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And because it's a
Nice.
left right, there's no scaling to worry about with that because it's a left right pan. So that won't work on a lot of things, but um, I don't know. Have I done enough on the outside? Should we move to the inside?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I don't know how we are on time.
Oh, we're good. We got about another
Um,
another 10, 15 minutes.
okay. Let's do interior. So here's a fun one. So on this one, actually, let's do an easier one. Instruments. So I don't want to scare you guys right away. So on this one here, I had to raise the headrest, put the inserts in and clean up this whole area here, and change the gauge so that it wasn't at 0, the speedometer, and put his and her temperatures in and get rid of the warning lights and all of that. So there's our comp.
Is that all?
Raised. That's all. Well, the other shots had his headrest higher, and then they were sitting on a set. So this is off. This is he's sitting here. Sometimes there's seatbelt lights that are on, and then the car was off, so it didn't have any of this stuff going on. So the first thing you want to do is rely on your interior. Actually, for this one, I don't even think I used the instrument. I just cleaned a frame and rotated it on an axis to rotate the little gauge. I don't know if you can see that. That's all they wanted, to make sure that it wasn't down. So that's just rotating a still frame. For the temperatures inside that were supposed to be here, I relied heavily on their reference artwork for what this stuff is supposed to look like.
Oh, gotcha.
And I could either steal it from there or a high res from here. Sometimes, if you have it. If they have not given this to you, you're on the internet and you're making your own.
If I didn't just do that yesterday on the job, I would tell you that you're crazy. But you're absolutely right. Exactly. We don't have the print ad for you, but I can find it on the internet. Okay.
Exactly. You have to Frankenstein in it. So, I mean, it fortunately is not moving a lot. It's straight on. So, you just have to match the blur and the color and the amount of glow and everything, and then get it in there. And then for raising the headrest, that was, oh yes. So I cleaned an area here, so that you could see behind it. So it's just I think it's just an offset. Yeah. Just a mat with a offset from his shoulder here, so that I have a patch to put underneath the bars when I raise it. And I just cloned it back over again. So now he's got his shirt behind here. And then I found another shot where the bars were up, which is the whole reason why they wanted to raise the shot, because all the other shots in the spot had this raised. So I was able to steal the pole and comp it in here, and then roto the headrest and repo it up. So basically I've comped a new headrest in there. Pretty straightforward, I think.
Nice.
So let's go on to something fun. Here's a screen replacement. This one has an animation where they go from screen A to screen B. He's picking up the phone call and answering, and he's got his hand in front of it, and there's dissolves. This is the plate. There's dissolves. There's a reflection of the steering wheel. There's all kinds of light and things happening behind here. So that's a hard one. And what you do is you want to clean one side of the screen first so that you have something to dissolve from. Oh, and the artwork that we're putting in there is, so we want to change that artwork to this artwork.
Aha.
So this is the new screen. Mm-hmm. So you want to clean the B side up so that you have the A side. You have a tracked area so that it's something you can comp that artwork onto. So I have basically done things like you denoise it, you take a still frame, you make sure you have your reflections in there that you want. You can add your flares back in if you need them, animating things, animating color corrects. And basically I'm taking a still frame and I'm matching the color and I'm matching the lighting, and then I'm tracking it back in and comping it into this thing. So I'm comping a clean plate, so that you have something to put the artwork onto. Ooh, that's fun. So that's the base that I've got ready. And then in this section, I take the artwork and I do a pixel spread so that you don't have the edges of the artwork. I don't know if you guys know that trick, where you have like if someone's given you artwork and you're having trouble putting it in there because the black edges or it's not the right size or something, you can do a pixel spread and get cleaned edges all the way around so you can slide your artwork however you want and it's not going to get in your way. And then we had to do a little bit of doctoring to get these things in the right area. And then I'm color correcting here and then putting the screen in. And then this is just my blur mat here. And then I've got a roto for the hand. And then Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
Nice.
And by here, you're back to the original. Because I didn't change anything outside.
Nice.
This one is a simple one. I didn't use the object obliterator on it. Stabilize and regrain, stabilize and paint. We didn't want this here. So maybe the seats weren't ready. So I just did a sequential paint and then pop that back on. For the grand finale, this little girl's seatbelt is on her neck. I don't like that. That is a safety hazard. So I don't know if you can see her seatbelt. They wanted the seatbelt taken off of her neck.
Okay.
So the approach is basically taking a still frame and painting it and then putting stuff back over. But she does go through some lighting changes here. So you're animating some color corrections or animating a couple of still frames and tracking them on.
Renee, could you just zoom in on the schematic a little bit?
Yes. Make it so that you can see. Let's see, which part should I zoom in on? I'll go like
just to see. Yeah, here we go.
So there's my GMass
There it is.
hanging out. So there it is. I've got one thing in there. So this is the first thing I'm doing is stabilizing. So that gets less scary to me anyway. When stuff's stabilized, you can really see exactly what needs doing.
Yep.
So, and you can see stuff going in and out of focus and all of that. So the first challenge was find a frame that's in focus that is straight on and has enough data in it to paint clean. And then you can animate it defocused if you need to. In this case, it looks like I did a sequential paint for this lower half. And then I used a mesh warp. Guys here. Deform mesh.
I don't think deform mesh gets enough love.
No. I used deform mesh to like get her neck back in place through a series of, I'm going to leave my mats on here so you can see, through a series of garbage mats. I'm basically putting her neck back together in this section here, you know, because when you're deleting things, you got to reshape it and create a neck where it was covered. And then I'm building a new belt here.
Wow.
And then it's just paint and offsetting. It's this is a paint here. These are both paint nodes. So and they're sequential paint nodes so that they're grabbing the light. I don't know if my machine's going to let me scrub through this or not. I'm not going to try. So I'm on a Mac. It's okay. And then this is a sequential paint as well. So I have that stuck here. And then I've got a mat for putting this little string back over here, the cord. But basically I'm masking the sequential paint back on. And then this is my tracking for it. So, and then this is inverting it back to taking that original stabilization and inverting it back. And I always only comp back when I stabilize something to paint on it, and then I invert the stabilization to put it back over the original plate. I always put a patch with a G mask. So I'm only replacing the area that I've worked on. I don't let the whole thing stabilize and unstabilize. I want to keep as much of the original plate as possible.
Yep.
So this is the area I worked on, and that's the area that's going to get cleaned up and patched in, and then getting her stuff back over top.
I don't think enough good can be said about that practice of stabilizing, doing your work, and then inverting the stabilization. You're right. It's like you look at something like this. I mean, you can see it in the chat here where you look at the shot like this and how do I do this? It's just like you sit there and go like, oh my God, like you start to sweat and you get dry
At
mouth.
first you
and you're
panic.
Like, yeah. Why did
Yeah.
I should have listened to my mother, and why did I do this for a living? Like, you don't know what you're going to do. But just by
Yeah.
simply removing the camera motion, all of a sudden everything becomes like the answers reveal themselves. Oh, there's something I can
Yes.
borrow. Oh, I can take that piece, and if I moved it over here, I don't have to recreate the world. I don't have to recreate lighting and focus. It's all there for me. And now that I've just removed that camera motion, I can see the
It
path
gets
forward.
less scary. Less stuff's moving as soon as you stabilize it. And sometimes when you think, oh, this is no problem, I'll just take an action node and I'll make a G mask, and then I'll source front, the piece that I want to cover, and it's done. But it doesn't work. And you're like, why is this not working? This should just be a source front. It's because the camera is doing a little jig. But if you stabilize it and do that same G mask source front, suddenly it works.
Yep.
So it fixes a lot of problems if you just stabilize it. So, and I do that by grabbing my G mask tracer and finding doing a whole bunch of grabbing different areas to see what will actually stabilize. And then I'm throwing that in an action node, and then I hit invert, and there, you're done. Stabilized.
I think Kieran Baxter said it best in the chat when he said, seatbelts are the worst and adding them back is horrible.
Yes. These are hard. I don't get a lot of them, but when I do, I'm like, ugh. So, okay, well, that's what I have for you guys today. And
that was great.
Let me know if I have any questions for you.
There was one. John had a question earlier that I bookmarked, and it was, do you usually clean up after the grade, or do you do it before the grade?
Usually after the grade, because a lot of the questions that they have are answered. Like sometimes when they want to pop the logo or do something, some of those things can be fixed in the grade. Sometimes you'll get lucky and get the footage before the grade so that you can actually start working on doing your tracking and stuff. And then you swap out the shot when you get the grade and run your setups. I've had to do that right recently, actually.
Well, Renee, I want to thank you for this. It's like the chat is exploding. Everybody's thrilled. Jeff says, amazing show. A woohoo from Richard. Bravo from Maury, and then applause from David. It's just been great. This is really just wonderful stuff.
Aw,
thank you so much for offering to do this. Like Renee reached out and said, I want to do a car show. And I was like, all right, let's do it. That's great. It's wonderful.
I love cars. I hope some of these techniques help you guys out, because I know that there's a lot of this stuff is repetitive. There's a lot of things that people are just like, it's the same notes a lot of times over and over. Tint the windows, obscure the driver, get rid of rigs. It's pop the badges, add a blinker, So if you have any questions, if anybody doesn't know how to do something or something new comes up, feel free to reach out to me in the Discord or in the Logik forums, and I'm going to try to reach out, and answer you back. I'm happy to share a screen with you if you want to show me your work. So don't be afraid to ask.
That's awesome. Thanks, Renee.
You
All
bet.
right, let's give away some prizes, shall we? It's Logik prize time. Oh, I went to that quickly, and I figured out during prep that I could put myself in the middle of the name wheel, and this has kind of become my new favorite thing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to give away is one of those fabulous new Logik winter hats, in your choice of white or black. Let's spin the wheel. Look at this. Oh my gosh. And it's David. Congratulations, David. Wow, it was fun. It made me a little dizzy, actually. Okay, one more time. We're going to give away a Logik t-shirt, and that t-shirt is going to go to Enrique. Congratulations, Enrique. And finally, I have from our friends at Boris Effects a 1-year license of optics. So let's spin the wheel one more time. And Repo, congratulations, man. All right. That was awesome. Well, thank you again, Renee. I'm going to wrap up the show. And if you want to take a break or take 5, I have a couple more slides to go through. Oh, actually, no, don't go anywhere. Let me finish up the slides and then we'll bounce over to the patrons chat. Yes, if anybody who is not a patron wants to get in on this, go to patreon.com/LogikTV, sign up, and I'll send you the link. All right, here we go. Well, we just did prize time. Coming up on Logic Live, I knew I have something to update. There's always something. Coming up on Logic Live, we're off next week for Thanksgiving here in the States, but Sunday, December 5th at 2 p.m., Jeff Kyle's going to be on to go over the image node. On December 12th, we have the One Frame of White show. It's going to be phenomenal. Super duper duper excited about that as always. And Sunday, December 19th, we're going to do a Logic 2021 holiday extravaganza, kind of just like a fun year in review. We'll show off some great work. We'll have some great guests. We'll give away some prizes. It's going to be wonderful. So please join us for that. If you have not already signed up for the forum, please sign up for the forum. And also, while you're there, get on Discord. We're on there all day. It's a great way to meet and to troubleshoot and to get your questions answered and just hang out with members of our wonderful community. This episode of Logic Live, like all episodes of Logic Live, will be available on the website, logic.tv, later today. If you haven't checked out our podcast, please do. There's Ask a Flame Artist, which is hosted by Randy and MB Emmy. And if you have a question for MB or for Flame Artist, you can go to logic.tv/askaflameartist, submit your question. Finally got a new episode of the podcast out last week. It was the State of Logic and Logic Hive Minds with Renee, Randy, and MB. Definitely check that out. All of our podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Randy, we're getting closer, man. We already surpassed Joel, but we're getting closer to, I guess, 1,300 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. Help us get those numbers up there. Thank you again to all of our patrons on Patreon. And let's just run through the discount codes real quick. You can save 10% on all Intuos Pro tablets from Wacom. If you're a US-based Logic member, just go to the Wacom store at bit.ly/WacomLogic and use the code Logic10 at checkout. Keep an eye out starting on the 25th for the big discounts from actionvfx.com, and the Boris Effects Black Friday sale starts tomorrow. And also, the Logic Black Friday sale starts tomorrow, for that flame artist in your life. If you need tech support for your flame, for anything at home or at your business, please call Jack Horrocks. And by call, I mean email at jack@flametech.com.au. We're going to have Jack on in a couple weeks to answer questions for anybody. Thank you, AJA, and thank you, Synesis. And finally, tomorrow is somebody's birthday. And look, she's getting all embarrassed. It's so cute. Actually, it's Renee and Randy's birthday tomorrow. And, let me bring back. There we go. A little happy birthday music. Happy birthday, Renee and Randy. Thank you both for everything that you do for the Logic community. You two are absolute treasures. I hope you have wonderful, happy birthdays. And that's going to do it, my friends. Thank you very much for tuning in to Logic Live. And we will see you next time. Everybody else, I'll see you over at the Patrons chat. Take care, everybody.